Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we are jumping straight into a high-stakes breakdown of disaster survival by looking at the gripping story Oldman River. Now, this isn't just a dramatic story. It's actually a really fascinating study of how ordinary people react when nature just suddenly turns on them. We're going to break down the whole anatomy of a crisis, the timeline, the psychological toll, and the absolutely crucial steps you have to take to survive rising floodwaters. So buckle up, because we're dropping right into the middle of a major emergency.
To really grasp how intense this gets, we've got to set the scene. Picture a dark, just incredibly dreary March afternoon. It's been raining nonstop for 3 solid days. We're inside the Marshall home, and the vibe is just suffocatingly claustrophobic. Inside, you've got 3 teenagers, 17-year-old Amy Marshall, her younger sister Betty, and their 16-year-old neighbor Rose. And that's it. They're completely alone. There are 0 parents around to tell them what to do.
The tension really spikes when the girls look out the window. Their backyard isn't a yard anymore. It's literally turned into a small lake. Then a radio report comes in confirming their absolute worst fears. The river is officially above flood stage. And to make matters so much worse, their dad is out of town in Chicago, and their mom is stranded across town because the local bridges are already totally underwater. They are completely cut off, and the water is just creeping closer and closer.
Now, every survival scenario has a tipping point, right? For the girls, it arrives literally panting at their front door. It's their 17-year-old neighbor, Jim Hall. Jim bursts in with some terrifying news that forces these kids to immediately shift gears. They can't just sit around in the living room hoping it passes anymore. Jim being there is the catalyst. It's time to stop waiting and start actively surviving.
Okay, let's dive into this timeline, because it perfectly maps out how fast things can go from bad to an absolute nightmare. After 3 relentless days of rain, Jim brings the big news at what we'll call minute 0. The Burnett Dam has completely failed. The river is surging. Barely 15 minutes later, the phone lines go dead. No more communication. And then, right around the 60-minute mark, the ultimate blow. The power fails. Just like that, in the blink of an eye, they are totally isolated.
Luckily, total panic doesn't set in, and that's entirely thanks to Jim. He'd actually had some junior Red Cross training, and man, does that kick in fast. He takes charge and starts issuing these incredibly practical, structured orders. He runs through a mental checklist. Fill every container you can find with fresh water. Grab all the flashlights and candles, prep a first aid kit, and check the food. If you take anything away from this, remember that having a mental checklist like this during chaos is literally what saves lives.
But then, things escalate. They realize someone is missing. Rose's 9-year-old sister Sarah is trapped outside. And she's not just in the yard, she's stuck on the porch of a playhouse that's basically about to float away in this rising flood. Jim doesn't hesitate. He wades out into the freezing, knee-deep water to rescue the 9-year-old, pulling her from this incredibly unstable playhouse back into the much sturdier main house. But that safety doesn't feel very safe for long once night falls. Like we saw on the timeline, the electric power completely fails. Now, this terrified group is plunged into absolute, total darkness. They're huddled around an old oil stove, just trying to stay warm, relying on a rapidly shrinking supply of candles for light. You can only imagine the psychological weight of sitting in the dark while the water outside just keeps rising.
And the true terror of their reality boils down to one crucial number. Just one. Jim pulls 17-year-old Amy aside. He does this privately, so he doesn't freak out the younger kids, and gives her a grim warning. The river is rising at a rate of 1 foot every single hour. Let that sink in. At that pace, Jim calculates that the very floor they're standing on is going to be completely underwater by morning. The clock is ticking, loudly. Fast forward an hour. The kids are all huddled together in the living room, and the suspense is just unbearable. It's pitch black outside. They can't see the water, but they can definitely hear it. More specifically, they hear unseen debris violently scraping and thudding against the outside walls. The claustrophobia has to be intense. They're trapped in this shrinking dry box, surrounded by a raging current carrying who knows what right into the walls, holding them safe.
So, desperation kicks in, and we hit another big number, 100. That's roughly the number of times Jim tries to signal for help. He climbs up onto the roof, in the dark, in the pouring rain, frantically flashing his light out into the void. He makes nearly 100 desperate attempts to catch someone's eye before, well, the worst happens. His flashlight battery dies completely. Just like that, their main way of communicating is gone. And that puts them at a terrifying crossroads. I mean, think about this for a second. You've got dead batteries, freezing floodwater entirely surrounding the house, debris bashing into the walls, and water rising a foot an hour. How do they signal for help now? They are quite literally in the dark, and they're just about to make the desperate call to grab their food and blankets and retreat to the attic.
Just as they're getting ready to abandon the ground floor, a miracle cuts right through the storm. A shout from the dark. Out of the pitch blackness, navigating these incredibly dangerous, debris-filled waters in a tiny boat, arrive Mr. Peters and a Red Cross nurse named Penny Marsh. Help has actually found the Marshall house.
But, as we know, disasters rarely resolve cleanly. In the frantic rush to evacuate, panic totally takes over. Everyone is scrambling around in dim candlelight, and suddenly, 9-year-old Sarah slips off a stepladder. It is a devastating accident right at the exact moment of rescue. She breaks her leg, which instantly turns a simple evacuation into a critical medical emergency. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the sheer ingenuity of Nurse Penny Marsh under extreme pressure. She has to stabilize a broken leg before they can even think about moving Sarah into a wobbly boat. Look at what she uses: ordinary household pillows, an umbrella, and a cane. She just brilliantly improvises, binding these everyday items together to create a rigid, secure splint for the 9-year-old. Talk about quick thinking.
Unfortunately, the rescue boat brings a heartbreaking logistical reality. It's a very small boat. It literally cannot hold everyone. And because of her severe injury, Sarah has to get to the emergency hospital right away. Rose and little Betty go with her, which means the group has to split up. 2 people have to be left behind in a dark, flooded house.
Those two are Jim and Amy. It's arguably the quietest, most poignant moment of the whole ordeal. After getting the younger kids safely onto the boat, the 2 older teenagers just have to wait. They climb up onto the roof, sitting there in the dark, completely surrounded by the flood. The rescuers manage to leave them a single jar of coffee, and they just sit up there, sharing it, hoping to God that small boat makes it back.
As they're sitting on that roof, just staring out into the bleakness, they finally see it. The waterline, which, remember, had been aggressively rising a foot an hour, finally begins to recede. The level actually drops. You can feel the massive emotional release here. That massive surge from the dam breaking is finally passing. The absolute worst of the immediate danger is officially over.
This entire situation is just a perfect illustration of human resilience. As the story wraps up, Jim and Amy express this profound, deep gratitude. They fully realize that without the life-saving help of organized emergency responders, specifically the Red Cross and the town's disaster committee, things could have ended very, very tragically. It's a stark reminder of how vital community support is when your own preparations hit their limit.
Which leaves us with something incredibly important to chew on. We watched Jim rely on his training to secure water, light, and safety in that vital first hour. So I'll leave you with this. If the dam broke today, if your power went out and the phones died in the next 15 minutes, would you know exactly what to do? Thanks for joining me for this explainer. Keep learning, stay prepared, and I'll catch you on the next one.